This is your first year experience as the festival director. How was the experience of having an online event festival?
It was rather unusual. I can certainly say that because, of course, it was in a way ironic because my previous job was running an acquisitions for an online streaming service. So I certainly didn't expect by leaving that company and coming to run the IFFR that I'm gonna become a director of first ever IFFR digital edition. But so in that way, of course, it came for all of us as an unusual experience, but not lesser of a festival for sure. There are many things that we have missed. We have missed meeting our friends and colleagues. We have missed welcoming the filmmakers and welcoming the audience physically on site. But we were also happy to find new ways of reaching audience and finding new ways of making the festival or this experience happen, even in the circumstances that prevent us from meeting each other in a way we normally would. Because 10 years ago, if you think about it, we would not be able to do this. And we examined many options, you know, before we came up to the conclusion and shape of the festival as we have just had it. And of course, until very recently, we have thought that there may be an option as well for us to have physical aspect of the festival next to the digital one, although digital one always had a much bigger place because it was accessing much bigger audience and industry and press. But even that, because of the circumstances with Corona at the moment in the Netherlands and practically the rest of the world, this was not an option. So in the end, we ended up catering to everyone, including as I said, the filmmakers, the audience, the industry, all through the digital sphere, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. And right now, at the conclusion, if you have a choice between physical festival and a well-organized online one, which one you will choose and why?
I think the central event always for IFFR, and I can speak on behalf of many festivals, I think, is that we would always choose for a big communal experience and experiencing it before big screen with the audience, with the filmmakers in the room. But we have to be aware that this force majeure and these restrictions that are currently here should not also prevent us, you know, from having this experience and having this amazing works from filmmakers being brought forward. There was a communal experience, you know, as well in a digital festival. There was a moment when the audience could not in a live manner interact with filmmakers as well. And there was so much value, you know, to be offered, to be, you know, given to these works. And yeah, that I'm so happy we managed to make this happen. But when I look at the industry events, for instance, it's an interesting question when you ask digital versus on-site event. But for a lot of our professional activities, the fact that we have set up, that we have known for a long time that this will be a digital festival, or the large portion of it at least will, which includes industry events, it meant also that we started exchanging with our fellow colleagues from the industry or with the filmmakers in much more meaningful and direct way early on in preparation for the festivals, because we have to understand, we had to take time to understand how we can best adapt to these circumstances and how we can best be useful and approach it constructively for everyone that takes part of the festival, right? So that, in a way, has brought us closer that normally we would not experience. We would wait, of course, for everyone to come to the festival. We would have a big collective experience and so on. But I think in level of understanding, you know, how to best adapt and how this we can turn nevertheless into experience that is meaningful, that offers connections, that offers interaction. In that regard, it was a big learning curve and very good one. So there are elements of this digital side that I'm sure we should reconsider, or we should consider, you know, using further on. And by that, I don't necessarily mean for the main event, which is the festival itself, but for much more sort of the R&D, the research and development side of it, for the professional side of it, that could be very meaningful to us. There is a lot of added value. But there's a complementary feature, I would say.
Okay. The second installment of the festival will be organized later this year. What is the difference between that part of the festival and the one that has already happened? If you can say more about the second installment.
Yeah, of course. So we decided to divide festival into multi-part event in order to really maximize on the opportunities as well, whether it comes for to each of our most sort of integral and crucial communities, and this is of course the community of filmmakers, the audience itself, the industry partners, and so on. The first part of the festival that just finished, the February one, has two main components, and that one is the competition program. So we had the Tiger competition, big screen competition, and several films from a limelight section, and this is the one that caters that shows films from distributors that as soon as cinemas reopen again will be going into the national distribution, right? And the second big component of it is our industry activities that I just mentioned already. So those ones early on in the summer, we already have decided we are going to render them online in the digital space, knowing that the international community at the time will not be able to travel, right? And we didn't want to be exclusive and cater only to several smaller groups that can be in Rotterdam, but we wanted to remain open and inclusive, and that of course immediately meant we're gonna switch online. So knowing that Rotterdam of course holds quite an important position on international calendar when it comes to film festivals, we wanted to keep these dates, and knowing that we have the attention from the global industry, we also wanted to use the opportunity and give as much visibility as possible to filmmakers who are premiering their works, who are emerging filmmakers as well, who need exposure, who need highlighting, who need really sort of this tailor-made sort of contextualization, or that we as a festival can actually provide to them, which is also the reason why we went with a slimmed down program that is only, in the end, we had only 43 feature films. And the reason for that was really to be able to give each of these selected films in competition right attention. And when it comes to the industry activities, Cinemart, meetings with new projects in development, all this has taken place right now. So there was this global community that gathered and paid a lot of attention, of course, to the competition titles as well. As we are gonna go to the June edition, we are gonna do several programs in between, of course, subject to possibility given the circumstances. We do hope that already those will be able to take place on site. But we have to be really careful and precautious and see how the development with the global pandemic will continue, and how the vaccination system will be rolled out, and will that help, enable us to have a larger event in June or not. And the June event is really meant for audiences as well, very much bringing them back to the cinemas, bringing them to the festival, and hopefully some open air events as well, because in June those should be possible here in Rotterdam. And it's very much as well June about our celebration of the 50th anniversary, because this is a big year for Rotterdam that marks the 50th jubilee. And the central part of the program in June will be about the thematic program dedicated to the legacy of IFFR, and also maybe looking into what we would like for IFFR to be in the future. So that will be the central program, and next to it we are going to bring the non-competitive sections that haven't been done part of the February edition. So these are Bright Future, which is a section dedicated to the debut filmmakers. And this year, exceptionally, each feature film programmer will be selecting one. Normally we have a selection committee and so on, but this time we have decided for Bright Future to really, each feature film programmer brings one film forward that they want to advocate for, are very passionate about. So that will be a diverse selection of about 15 titles. And next to that, we have two more sections. One will be Harbor, which is our main program. It's a new section we have introduced this year in a reshape of the program, and it's essentially the backbone, the main program of the festival. And next to it, our Cinema Regained, which is a program dedicated, of course, to looking at the film history from today's point of view, and bringing restorations, films that are talking about restored works. It can be often documentaries and so on. Yeah. So this is the program.
Just a question, because normally when we think of online, we think that the online increase the possibility to of having interactions or possibility of seeing something. So why in a online film festival the number of films that get selected decrease instead of increase?
We went with a shorter amount of days as well. So we have presented the films over the course of 7 days, only actually 6, because on the first day we only had, of course, the opening night film. The habits of attending a film festival virtually is very different, actually, right? We do not have the same attention. No, most people cannot take holidays to attend the virtual festival in the way as they can when they mobilize to actually travel, go to Berlin, go to Rotterdam, go to Cannes, and so on. So it's a very different experience altogether. And we have noticed that there is a group of attendees that will watch 6 films a day, but the experience of watching film online often then happens to for many viewers to see 1 or 2 films a day, because this is mostly what they can afford. So we have noticed that by showing films virtually as well, we are going to really help a lot of films by slimming down the selection and giving them more exposure. And I think that proved quite right, because we were looking at the attendance number, of course, still, because we just finished the festival, but the habits of most viewers when they're watching films online, it's very different from the one in physical shape. So this is also the reason why we had decided to really focus on the tentpole programs for us, and these are really the competitions and the films we thought that need most exposure at the moment. These are films that haven't had their world premiere yet, when you look at the competitions, and that need to sort of have their debut. They need to be seen by press and industry. They need to start their festival careers, and this is what we wanted to give most exposure towards. So while hoping that, of course, as we go towards June, the on-site possibility and more programs, we will select normally more films. At least this is the plan for now, that in our June program, which is, as I said, there's a hope for it to be an on-site cinema, big screen event, that then we are anticipating of engaging, of course, audiences with a bigger number of films. But it will not be a usual IFFR program. It's over 5 days only. So we are not planning to present films, amount of films that is unachievable, that is too large. So in total, even if you summarize all the programs that we are going to be presenting this year, in total, it will be less movies than usual, because in a regular year, I'm sure you know that IFFR presents over 500 films, and usually among those, I think there are 270 last year that were feature films. So it's quite a big number. Yeah.
And considering your first year of experience, what area of the festival you hope to improve? You hope to improve during your leadership?
I am very curious in sort of exploring the possibility of doing more year-round events. To a certain degree, that's the case as we speak. Not that I really asked for it to happen in this way, but indeed we have now a festival that is spanning over a 5-month period. So this is really something that I'm interested in understanding, which of the programs that we normally have in our very rich regular festival edition can sort of function as standalone events throughout the year and can engage with the local audiences or Dutch audiences as well throughout the year. But that doesn't necessarily only refer to the audience as such. I really find that very interesting as well in the research and development stage for the industry. As I just mentioned, the way how we had worked with our industry this year and the professionals that range, it's all the disciplines from sales agents to distributors, exhibitors, producers, and so on. The way how much work we have done sort of together as a community to understand how best, in these circumstances, we can be helpful as a festival, as a network, as a platform that can connect people. We have really achieved so much by starting early on, by creating these online groups and projects that we have worked on together since this summer. So we had these work groups from people from all over the world, coming from very different disciplines from the film industry, and deciding, how best as a festival we can cater to the community of filmmakers, how best to the audience, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And those results were very helpful also in understanding how best we can shape this year's very extraordinary edition. But I don't see why would we drop this and not use it for a very regular edition, because in any way it will help us advance. It will help us advance as a community and as a festival in general to always rethink the shapes, the forms in which we are organizing these things. And yeah, this was an experiment that when was happening before the sort of the audience in public as we speak, because of course making this festival as we did this year was one big, of course, experiment, and there are things that worked very well. There are things that we are aware that we cannot replace, and it's not about replicating the festival as we know it online. It's understanding which parts of it can work and which most likely not, and what do you need to do instead. But so many key learnings came not only from the event itself, but the whole process that has been carried out to get there. And I think this is such a valuable input that we got, and there are so many things that from it I think we're going to use as tools, as processes in changing the things that we take for granted when we are organizing events for that is so well established and exists for decades. And there are many things that you do that just repeat themselves, and this interruption and disruption of sorts has really allowed you to sort of look at them from the different perspectives and think about them and say, hey, let's all sit down for a moment and discuss, is this a way how we should continue? Is this a way this situation really allowed you to look at it and say, okay, when things can go back to the way we know it, is the old way the way we should continue it, or the discussions we're having now allow us to build on it and complement it, or entirely change it from the old normal, as we call it. So yes, I was very curious about how R&D can be helpful in improving the festival as it is. And then this year, of course, we had a special aim when we have been interacting with everyone in understanding how to just make the festival happen. But I'm going to use key learnings as a team. We are certainly going to use, but we are also going to continue discussing with our fellow colleagues, filmmakers, and everyone else to understand how best we can build on what we have done so far already.
And you mentioned that the fact that you worked previously for acquisition for online streaming. So I'm imagining that you have a very particular understanding of the film and its meaning. I'm just curious to know what you define as a good film.
It's in a way we can offer it a very simple answer. It's a good film is the one that works, and it doesn't need to adhere to the rules the rules of genre or the rules that someone canon of cinema has set up. It can also be made of rules that the director came up with themselves, and it functions in all its layers and all its complex way. And additionally, for me, a good film is a film that has something to say. It can be a film that speaks to masses, as a film still is the most significant mass communication art, but it can also be a film that speaks only to few, that whispers to few, but it's equally important because over time, and if nurtured, if cultivated properly, and this is where festivals hold a key role, it can over time start speaking to a much wider group. And this is what I always find very, very intriguing about this, big sort of discrepancy of films that speak to big audiences and big groups, and the ones that only few have ears for, but then over time they become much more significant. And as I said, the festival here, and I'm always so excited about this, holds such a precious role. You can think for filmmakers like for instance, like Clav Diaz, 10 years ago, or even a bit more now, 15 maybe, very few people attended his screenings. And today we cannot imagine an A festival without a Clav Diaz film in it, and also winning many awards. And this is exactly what I'm pointing at.
And in terms of film selection, How is the working relationship between sales agent, international distributor, and programmer at your festival? How close you work? How close you are working with sales agent or international distributor for selecting films?
Yeah, we have a big team, of course, of programmers, and we have a selection committee, and we cover when researching for a film, making the competitions, making the program, we really try to cover as many resources and information about where a film that we want and film that we want to present to the festival is. And that to a certain degree, one part of it is certainly covered through discussions with distributors and with sales agents. My background is, of course, very much between the programming and managing various industry events or acquiring films. So there is a very good, and IFFR has decades of showing films that span between, of course, films that I was just mentioning, speaking to a few, and films that speak to a great audience, because IFFR is a very big audience event as well. And so we have very strong relationships, of course, with distributors, especially here, because there is a big program called Limelight that caters to films that are avant-premières, just before they hit cinemas. And with the sales agents, when it comes to especially films that need that first push, that need that first opportunity for exposure, and is where then they can often find their place in a program like Tiger Competition, or for more established filmmakers, so then they go to the big screen. So yes, we talk a lot with sales agents and distributors, but we also talk a lot about film with films producers and communities that do not have neither distributor or sales representation, because this is a big part of program that Rotterdam is made of. It's keen on really nurturing the talent, cultivating dialogues and sort of different perspectives from filmmakers that will not get a chance to have this kind of representation. And this is where festival wants to be strong, wants to be curious, and wants to be inclusive as well, because there is certain part covered by the market, usually always from films that come from sales agents and ask and seek distribution. There is a big part of it that we don't have our eyes so much open for, unless because they don't get, as I said, they don't get the opportunity to either get release or sales representation. But as a festival, IFFR plays a very important role in bringing those films to the audiences, and hopefully as well to possibilities to perhaps gain such partnership, perhaps, and get a representation of a sort, whether it's through distribution or sales agent. So yes, markets or films that are usually presented at the market hold part of have a role at the IFFR, but there is a big part that is for us about giving opportunities to films that usually would never get it. And yeah.
And in terms of political position, there are some festival directors who believes that selection of films should be based on the film's artistic merits. Some festival directors favor specific policies to increase the presence of female directors, or looking for specific films from third world countries. So I'm just curious to know more about this political dimension behind selection of film at your festival.
I think you mentioned here artistic merits, and I think it's at the core of a film festival, like programming, selection. It's exactly what that curiosity about it is the most important one, to constantly debate what the artistic merits actually are, because we cannot assume that there is an agreement on what the artistic merits are, and we have to be always very open to the discussion about it. And because once you started doing that, all of a sudden, a lot of doors open about things about films that are often overlooked, because for so many different reasons. I can name many, but I notice often when all of a sudden we open doors to the discussion, we really find so many new directions where we should look. And it's ultimately very much about reconsidering what our value system is, how it is shaped, our value system of ideas and of artistic merit as such, which is also, and then you see a sphere that opens up, that is very inclusive as well, not only of a lot of female artists and filmmakers, but also representation that often is overlooked when it comes to class, or when it comes to racial representation of sorts. So it's quite interesting. But I think our role is really constantly reevaluate, nurture it, build it on the culture that we already have. We have to constantly enrich it and not close ourselves in thinking this is how it should be, because then we will not move much forward.
Mm-hmm. What are you mentioned that you are trying to create more year-round program and hope to do this with research activities. I'm just wondering, what are your plan or future plan to support filmmaking activities, especially in the face of Corona? Are there new initiatives that you are currently working in this regard?
I do think that this year was sort of ranked so many sort of red flags in terms of how precarious the position of many filmmakers can be, especially the ones that we try to, as much as we can, support and represent. And this, I'm sure you're aware of our funding program. It's called HBF, Hubert Bals Fund. It helps really develop and finish projects from all over the world, especially caters to filmmakers that do not have so many opportunities when it comes to production support in their own respective countries. And of course that again, now more than ever, what happened due to this crisis is that our communication with them has increased, and the connection in a way is stronger than ever. And one of the missions that we have right now, leading up to the June edition, is also to understand how, as the professional side of the festival, can best adapt to these needs, that are changing. So what we want to do leading up to our June edition is really sort of rethink in the way. So we have HBF support, we have our cinema programs, and so on and so forth. So a lot of activities that help emerging filmmakers and already established filmmakers to create new connections, to develop their projects. We can offer support to a certain degree to development of these projects. But again, I think with the change of these circumstances, and I do think that we need to reevaluate how best we can do that. And is the model, it's something that I mentioned already before, is the model that we have sufficient, or it needs to adapt, not only to disruption that happened with Corona, but because our models may also to a certain degree not anymore cater to the filmmakers' needs, because the projects that they're doing are no longer sort of as straightforwardly a feature film in development or straightforwardly something else. So I think what I'm hinting at is that this plurality of forms and voices that one filmmaker can have while trying to develop a feature film can all of a sudden become something else. And we as a festival and as a platform that supports this project to sort of be carried out needs to adapt to that as well. And I think what's happening right now has prompted that reaction or accelerated the way how we think about it and how we communicate about it more than before. And this is something that we are now exploring and working a lot with colleagues from the industry, but also with the filmmakers themselves. So some first sort of results on the way how we think about it, we plan to present. We plan to present it partly in our June edition as well. But the process of sort of implementing that and so on will take probably more time. But it is the whole R&D that I was mentioning is really now going to be focused on that, how best we can support filmmakers in sort of these changing times, but also are we as a market or as a festival that has a project market can really be more flexible in a way to what type of projects is supporting.
Mm-hmm. And to conclude this conversation, I'm just curious, considering your experience in this year, the online experience, what you want to do. Do you have now a kind of vision about Rotterdam Film Festival, about how you want to think about its future and its meaning, especially in the festival world market?
In the well, in the market, you mean, or specifically?
In the festival circuit, in the whole.
So, well, I think Rotterdam holds a very strong position, on the festival international map, and especially we mentioned quite a lot of these things throughout the conversation. It has, decades of sort of experience in offering opportunities. I think this is the key thing. It's not cementing itself into one thing and one thing only, but rather really seeking in every possible direction, what is the talent, what are the films, what are the filmmakers we want to bring to our audiences and international, of course, attendees of the festival. And this sort of playfulness of it, opportunities and playfulness, I think as well is what I'm mostly interested in exploring further as well, because I really want the festival to more than ever be open to yes, of course, fresh voices, but also very, very sort of diverse voices, diverse languages. And Rotterdam, of course, that was its mission from the very start. So having an opportunity now to be here and see the competition being as diverse as possible for films, as I just was mentioning, can speak to a very large audience, but also whisper only to the few, and be next to each other, and as such create a new dialogue is really something that I find most exciting about, and really just being curious and continuing to be curious. This is and give opportunity, and this is what we really want to stand for.
Yeah, that was a very good talk and very informative, and I appreciate and I feel that very great things is going to happen. I'm also very much involved with film research apart from doing journalists, and I'm very happy that you have those kind of vision and integrating more research into the work, and also opening the possibility for different filmmakers to present their ideas. And
I think that's the most important. Yeah, it's really we have to be open.
Yeah, and I hope that I can come and physically to your festival.
Have you been already to IFFR?
No, this is the first year. I have been to many film festivals, but I never had the chance to be at Rotterdam. But this online, because of the timing, I usually go to Sundance and Berlin, and Rotterdam is somehow between them. And it's making very difficult. You can't. There is always a schedule, the conflict of a schedule. But this year, we're seeing the films, and it makes me very interested to know more and to come to the Rotterdam. Maybe sometimes I can. I hope that I come.
I hope you can.
Yeah.
Maybe next year will be the first opportunity, because there may be a part of the festival that it's not overlapping with Sundance, and then you can go to Berlin afterwards. So
yeah, I will see, because I will see. I'm doing lots in film. I'm also a filmmaker making films. So hopefully someday I will. Soon I will be at your beautiful festival, and I hope every great things happen to your festival.
I'm very glad we got to talk a little bit, and yes, I hope I see you as well in person, and we can talk more.